So we all saw the under.
We did. Yeah, and Dustin, it's a good opportunity to chat with you because you are one of the most wonderfully geeky VR, AR theater nerds that I know, and somehow we haven't actually gotten much of a chance to talk about it.
Yeah, no, we haven't. And I kept, I meant to, because I moved, so Kevin, I moved to New York in July, and then
welcome. What a weird
and
time.
there was and then I dealt with apartment hunting, which is its own nightmare. And then I dealt with moving all my stuff here, which is its own nightmare. And then you keep pushing back your like debutante. When you move to a new area, you have to then be like, hello, I'm ready to meet people. And then there's a lockdown.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And now I'm like, oh, okay, so we'll just push it back later.
Well, welcome.
So they fucking did it. They did the dream. They did like everything right. And like so often, and I'm sure Alex, you like you empathize with this. So often a big company will fund some work and like someone replicates an old medium in a new medium. And it's like, oh, cool that you hired some celebrities for it, or cool that you spent a lot of money on 3D modeling. And it's made a good trailer, and it made a good soundbite to explain what it is, but it's not really it. But they did it. They properly did it. Oh man.
Yeah, and any 2D representation of this really doesn't do it justice. Like you really just need to experience the thing, which is perfect.
Yeah, and the interaction was the right amount of playful without derailing, which is it was like I actually hadn't seen the Under Presents. Like it had been like one of the things like had you guys actually seen the? Okay, so I hadn't, for no reason, like almost like weirdly irresponsible to me of me to not have seen it. And so I like went in very blind.
I would say probably to your benefit, because then you didn't have as many preconceived notions of what it might actually be.
Yeah.
Did this make you want to use the Under? Like, are you gonna now check out Time Boat and stuff?
Probably. So at the Immersive Summit in 2019, I asked Tender Claws, hey, so what's your business model for the Under? Like, are you selling tickets? How does that work? And they were like, oh, well, there will occasionally be actors in there, but not all the time. It'll sort of be a surprise. And to me, that felt, I actually was quite disappointed with that. Like, almost like, probably, like, to be honest, it turns out now unfairly turned off. Because I was like, oh, it's sort of a marketing stunt. You actually aren't really doing theater. You just will occasionally have a live performer in there. It sounds like you actually don't really care about theater. And that was just like a really unfair thing to think, obviously. But like for me, like I had been like thinking of like, well, how do you do the business model? Like you have to like convince people to pay for live events remotely. And so I was trying to fundraise for that a year ago, and no VCs believed me. But now I don't need to worry about it. It's not my problem anymore.
Right.
And I wonder, though, like what effect this will have on people thinking about funding these kinds of ventures, because, of course, this is being subsidized. There's no way that $50 per ticket is paying for everything. But at least maybe it gets people excited.
Yeah, they're heavily subsidized by Oculus.
Yeah.
But what are they paying for? I mean, because from a strictly theatrical model, $15 a ticket, as many shows as they're doing, could work. Assuming the actors are making, $50 an hour, $25 an hour. It's a model that
it would work in a steady state. It wouldn't recoup the development costs for a very long time.
No. But I'm wondering what the costs are, what the op costs are now, currently. How easy is it for them to throw this in? Not to say that you're wrong. I mean, obviously this is subsidized, but truly, like, I know how much it costs to put on a show about this scope to whatever extent. I have no idea what it costs to operate something like this or any kind of social VR platform ongoing.
Well, when I was hiring actors, I was hiring like improv theater people who are very cheap. And like for them,
I know. $40
or $50 an hour is like way more than they've ever been paid, and like that was very economic, and that was like I consider that extremely economical. Also, they could do it from their home, and a lot of them are like voice actors or do auditions. So they actually normally have proper full audio setup, and like some of them have like soundproof rooms and stuff like that already. So like I guess the unit economics are like very good.
Yeah,
but
and
it's just
I
development upfront. So.
Yeah,
Sorry,
every aspect of how this came together, I'm just really curious about. I want to know because it sounds like it's about 2 months that the whole thing came together, about a month of rehearsals. But like even just getting all of the cues together and the set design and all the mechanics for teleporting everyone, and some of this stuff is already baked into the under. Like I did recognize even there's one environment that gets used in Tempest that already existed in the under. I think all the other ones were created specifically for this. But I'm just really curious about all the technical aspects of making this all work because, Dustin, you've done 1,000 kinds of VR, AR, digital theater experiences. Kevin and I have done a few as well. And it's so easy for things to go wrong and for things to break. And the general stability of this experience, I mean, even the fact that you're just teleported once it's your ticket time into the world and the lobby and you're all brought from each location, like it's very hard even for a VR newbie to mess it up, which is something.
They kept it really simple, which I was very impressed with. I don't think there was a stage manager. I get the sense that like there might have been someone on hand, but like it looks every like interactive moment could have been handled entirely by the performer. So in the stuff I was doing, it was the same thing. Like I would have an actor doing something, but I would be on hand unless something broke. But I always built it so that the actor had 100% control. So we never had to have those moments of like when someone else is operating a PowerPoint presentation for you and you're like, okay, next slide. Okay, you did it too soon. Like I never wanted to have any of those moments. Like all the control needs to be in the performer, and they need to so like all the control needs to be in the performer constrains a couple things. It means that like they need to be able to operate the interface without having to like go to a different mode. And also anything that could possibly happen can't actually break anything too bad. Everything needs to be a single dumb click. And like all the moments in the show seem to be sort of like advancing slides. Like I'm like, okay, we'll go to this scene and this scene. Okay, and like now this animation will play. Okay, now you'll receive these hats. Like there was never anything that was like could have gone too poorly, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, and so I went through the experience once, and my wife did. We both had the same host, and something we noticed that happened both on the host end and the attendee end is if something goes wrong and your audio cuts out, or you drop out, or you lose internet access, you can be gone for like a couple minutes and then pop right back in, and you will be at the correct scene. I think you can even still have like props and costumes added onto you. So it's very robust and very able to respond to a lot of weird things.
Oh, I was so into the finger snapping. That was so so clever. Like you just need those ways to like express yourself without being too disruptive. I was just very impressed with that. It was just a very nice design.
In the experience you were in, Dustin, did it feel like a lot of people there were already familiar with the under, or did it seem like a lot?
I could not read that.
Here's a simple question. Did everyone have the same mask, or did you see a lot of different?
No, one person did have a different mask. And I was wondering if it's because they had already been through the under. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, it could have been one of two things. So you remember, of course, at the end of Tempest, by the way, spoilers.
We had the swirl, right?
The spiral swirl. So obviously that would be, they've done Tempest before. But then in the under, there is a fairly complex system for upgrading your mask. And so anyone you see with a non-standard mask, like they're a power user of the under.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense.
Dustin, I have maybe a really naive question. From a production standpoint, you said you liked to give it to the actors so that they don't have to have somebody like a stage manager type. And obviously in analog theater, having a stage manager is an enormous relief and also a necessity, but sometimes just an enormous relief. Do you think it's the newness of this tech and the amount of wrong that it can go that makes it more secure for the actor to be in charge? Do you think there's a world in which stage management becomes a standard?
There's a couple of reasons for that. It makes it first things first, it's kind of required because it makes it economical. Because you sort of need, because these people, this isn't a show that you can necessarily work 8 hours a day. So you do have to pay people more than like $40 an hour, or like you can't pay them minimum wage. It would be really unfair to. So you need to pay them more. So if you had a stage manager, you would need to have an audience size of 8. So there's just like some math there. and you probably could have done this with 8 people. It definitely wouldn't have been as personal. Like the moment where where the actor calls out to each of you. In real theater, you might have someone who's doing like the lights in the back or something like that, who will know, or it'll be scripted and there'll be cues at certain times. Like you could have done this, I guess, with a stage manager who is like paying attention and listening. But when in analog theater, like the stage manager, there's so much stuff that's expressed in like looking in someone's face and eye contact and their facial expressions. So the stage manager can like look at the people on stage, look at their face, look at their subtle movements, and tell like, oh, this will be the right moment. And like if the stage manager was like watching in VR, it'd be a little bit harder to tell. But also the actor can be fucking around with some button, and like you can't see that in VR. So they can do a lot of interface things without you noticing. So it doesn't really like break the magic in a way that like in analog in-person theater, if someone pulled out a remote and like suddenly did the thing in the middle of a monologue, like whereas the actor here could do that and it's fine.
Got it. Great.
That's
a really good answer.
Those are my
really
thoughts around that.
There's a fun behind the scenes video for The Under, and I imagine it's a similar setup for Tempest, where you see basically what the actors see, their own little.
Oh, I would love to see that.
Things. Yeah. And then they have like a dressing room with a mirror, and they can make sure all their tracking's working. Yeah, I'm also curious, Dustin, what do you think about the general style of the world and how it's basically masks, like you don't have any mouth moving, and you don't even have a lot of detail in the faces. I think some of the characters don't even really have eyes.
Well, it's the right choice. Because like it's that's like we got into that conversation about the poor theater, like the Grotowski's towards the poor theater, where like the only thing that matters right there is that it's people talking, and then all the other stuff, and then there's that one scene with the big spirit over you, which is like the spectacle moment, but it's very simple, and so like it doesn't like overpromise anything. Like it was perfect. Like I was so like impressed with it. I think all that stuff was probably made in Quill, I'm guessing.
Probably not. I mean.
Okay. I was looking at the brush style, and
I think it like leans on Quill, but I think it matches the rest of The Under basically. So I think they have probably a different sculpting set. Yeah, it'd be crazy to find out that The Under Presents was entirely built in Quill and they just didn't tell anybody.
Oh yeah, no, it's certainly like there was doorknobs and stuff like that. But a lot of the like the initial house in the Tempest and like that landscape you wander across. Definitely the food on the table was 3D modeled properly. But like some of the like big landscape stuff felt very Quill-like.
And Catherine, you was just saying that the Tempest environments actually have way more polygons than anything else in The Under. So it's interesting that they found reason to have more detail in certain areas.
Or they didn't have the time to continue to streamline their poly count.
That could be it too.
That's a very valid and normal reason.
Well, and Unders can support many more simultaneous users. So yeah, Under probably has to be more optimized than this does, since they cap it at 8 or whatever. Real quick, guys, because I don't know anything about Grotowski. Can Dustin or Kevin, can one of you give the short version of that?
So, theater's been around for a while. In the late 1800s, early 1900s, cinema started to become a thing. So where they had big projected movies. And so theater would try to compete with cinema. So it would add more special effects elements. And theater had special effects before, but it became this like kind of one-upmanship competition between theater and cinema. And so this guy named Josie Grotowski wrote a couple of essays in the 50s. So it's like later, where he was like, hey, the point of theater, the essays were called Towards a Poor Theater. He's like, the point of theater is like people in a room. So really you should strip away all the elements except for people in a room. And that's what really is important and really matters. That's all that really matters. The other things that you go to our spectacle, and he was sort of like being kind of science fictional. He was like, theater will not be able to compete on spectacle with other art forms such as cinema and other things, installations, or whatever. So theater should try to compete on like theater, which is people in a room. the term spectacle is like a special term because it like Aristotle or Socrates or something like that, when he wrote about the principles of theater, like that was like one of the elements was like spectacle.
You
so
mean the Poetics? Are we talking
Aristotle's Poetics.
Poetics, yeah. One of the important elements of spectacle. So like what I was doing, I did grad school in like digital theater. And one of the things I thought of a lot was like, well, how do you make it digital theater but also poor? Because if we've all been to those things where like someone has like hooked a Kinect up to a visualization and gets a ballet dancer to do a dance in front of it. And there's a visualization, and it has nothing to do with each other. And you're like, the ballet dancer is obviously rehearsed independently from the dude who like made the visualization, but they've thrown together and then they do a little talk at the end about how like they inspired each other, which they totally didn't. And so like, and that's like not theater. That is like spectacle plus some movement. And so the best like digital theater stuff is where like the technology still stays poor. And this was that. It was just some people in a room, but we happen to be able to like be jumped from location to location, and we happen to have like he could dress us up. And so it was like poor theater. It was perfect. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
It wasn't like a chat room plus a bunch of spectacle moments. Like it was just people in a room.
I really got excited by that comparison insofar as like it allows us to reground the basics of theater in VR. Like this is poor theater, and yes, you can fly, and yes, that actor was a giant, and yes, magic. But like, of course, those are the poor elements of virtual reality. Without those things, you're doing something other than VR anyway. And so the idea of expanding what we accept as core sort of fundamental theatrical experience to include the things that are core user experiences for VR, I think is a really exciting way to look at what is inevitably going to happen again, this like obvious battle between interpersonal virtual reality art and spectacular, the Void style virtual reality art games, which are plenty of room for both.
I really liked how the Void is maybe in trouble with Disney right now.
Well, yeah, right. The Void is maybe out of
that like needs to be explained. That's like another 2020 mystery. But one of those you just listed a bunch of fundamental elements of VR, which I actually like really liked, because you're like, these are the poor VR elements. These are the ones that matter. It's scale changes, like your body changing.
Right. Like locomotion. I mean, I guess physics-less locomotion. I don't know I mean,
but you're right. Like the scale, like being different sizes of things, and your body being a weird thing, are like two elements you can. And I guess that includes dress up. Sure. Those are the two kind of poor VR elements. And if you add more stuff, it's probably 3D modeling or some other spectacle thing that actually isn't necessary. Right. But somehow these things don't count as spectacle, and I don't necessarily know why. But they seem to be the right use of the medium.
It begs the question.
Someone needs to write that down and write that list down.
I know, for real.
Sorry, go.
That's
go
an
ahead.
academic paper that would absolutely get published.
Yeah.
I think like similarly, as adoption speeds up, like what we take for granted as basic virtual interactions, I think is going to change so vastly also. And I think that is a major part of the conversation of like what makes theater is not independent of what makes people and like how people interact in standard social spaces. Theater being just a designation of a bunch of people in a room, but they have to do, they're supposed to behave a certain way, be the same, just younger. Did I freeze again?
Only for a second that time.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah,
great.
Alex froze that time too, so it must have been a New York wide.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's funny because like that moment where we I think there was that moment where we were around the pool in his house, and then we cast through and saw the boat below. So why is that not spectacle? Is it because we had to do it together because we were like casting a spell together? It was a fancy graphicsy shadery moment, but
right.
And even when he was like a big guy, like that also wasn't spectacle because it didn't overstay its welcome is the wrong term.
It
wasn't too
I don't know.
bombastic.
Yeah, it was like very briefly like, wow, but then it went back to a thing.
Yeah, it does feel spectacular and does not feel like spectacle, and I can't necessarily explain that.
Yeah. Did you guys sit for any period of time?
I did for most of it, actually. I stood
Oh,
at my
okay.
own hour.
When we were in story mode around the fire, I just sat cross-legged on the floor.
Nice.
Wow.
Which of course
yeah,
makes your avatar much shorter.
Really
Yeah. I don't think right, because we don't have knees. We had just that cone thing. But like that made me that like I was like into it. I'm like, it's story time now. I am like
That's cool.
ready for this. I live alone. I haven't seen anyone in 4 months, guys. Please. Yeah. So it was enjoyable to be in a space with people without the weirdness of eye contact. The weirdness of lack of eye contact that you get over video conferencing.
How were the rest of your audience members? Were they as into it as you are?
Yeah, it's a good question. I do often, I have the experience, I'm sure you guys have it as well, where like when you go to an in-person immersive theater show and you're the most gung-ho person, and I'm not saying, there's those audience members that are too gung-ho, they're like upstaging the performers, or they're like trying to win or something like that. Like, I'm not saying I'm in that category. I'm not that kind of person. But like, how you seem to be really willing to like chase on actors, or you seem to be like willing to investigate things, and like other people aren't as into, and you're not sure if you're like in the wrong, or like you're not sure if they're uncomfortable. And you're familiar with this feeling, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't feel that in the show, and I don't know if people were like, if it was people who had done the under before, or I mean, I probably was in the minority that I hadn't done the under before. But yeah, what was your experience?
I had a couple of people who were not interested, who were interested in running around and exploring the island.
Oh,
like
okay.
They were
Yeah.
in any social VR space. So it was hard and it was just the three of us. And I, really felt for the actor who was ultimately just wrangling. And it had a lot to say about my experience.
Wow.
So I'm curious to go back and see it with people who are more interested in making the host do less work.
Yeah, I had 5 people, and all of them were pretty engaged with the host.
That's cool.
Did you get to have a wedding scene, or were people too chaotic?
We did ultimately have a wedding scene, but it was
okay. Cool.
I mean, all of it though, like truly, I said this earlier to Alex, I've done this show. I know this show pretty well. And at the end of it, I went, wait, what show was this? Like I had no following the story in mind or anything.
Yeah, I didn't worry about that.
Yeah. And I mean, truly also I wasn't, but then it ended and I went, wait, I was expecting this show to start. But instead I've just been running around like an idiot with a bunch of fucking strangers.
Did it feel like a whole bunch of warm-up exercises?
I'm sorry?
Did it feel like just a whole bunch of warm-up exercises? Or?
It felt like I don't know. I mean, I'm hesitant to keep leaning on this, but it really felt like a corporate workshop, like a team building workshop. Like together, you're going to make the Tempest, and it's going to be wonderful. And at the end, you'll tell your HR rep just what you learned. So the whole thing felt very like none of us really wants to do that. Just tell us the story. Let us sit, and we want to hear the story from you.
Oh. Yeah, I had like a way better vibe for my show, where it ended up being more playful and everyone was sort of around the performer all the time.
I got to do it again.
I wonder if there's a critical group size, because we had 5 people. How many people did you have, Alex?
I had 6 plus me, so 7. And everyone that I was in there with had special masks. So they were all under pros. They were all super gung-ho. Every time the host said something sad, they'd be like, oh, so, like, pat them on the back. Like, everyone was super into it.
Yeah.
That's cool. It sounds great.
I did this weird thing. Oh, man. This was like 2016. Where this is like a physically in-person show in San Francisco, where you were supposed to do a scavenger hunt and encounter 5 characters who happened to be secretly the 5 parts of the hero's journey. And the 4th character, we were leading it up so the 5th character would be a battle. And the 4th character was a balloon swords person who you would buy swords from. That's how we ticketed the show. We would send you on an adventure, and then like once you got to like the 4th person, they're like, here's $20 for a balloon sword. You don't need to buy it, but if you want to do well in the final battle, you need a balloon sword. And
That's really smart.
And the groups, and I thought that the groups that were smaller would be having more fun. But it turns out the groups that were larger would have more fun. So like groups of 1 or 2, we would like go and look at them, and they weren't groups of 2 or 3 weren't having a particularly good time. But the group of 8 was having the funnest, because they all like, one of them bought like I think balloon swords were $10. A balloon warhammer was like $20, and someone bought like 2 in the group of 8, and they were like chanting war cries at each other and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, like there's some sort of thing about a mini mob mentality where it feels like kind of dorky to do it amongst 2 or 3 people, but somehow there's like some one-upmanship that happens with a slightly larger group that like makes it better. I'm sure maybe when you get to like 20, it's too big, and then you kind of feel like a stranger. But like there's something, I don't know, like a good D&D crew size is like 4 or 5, you know. But like maybe an immersive theater thing has to be a little bit larger. I don't know. But like maybe 3 is just too small.
I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense. I do think 3 is too small, especially when it's like at some point each of us was relied on to do a thing, and if one of us wasn't doing it, everything had to come to a stop. So.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I wonder if there'd be a way to create like a guaranteed minimum experience where if there is a situation where there's not many people or one person is gung-ho but no one else is, that the first thing that comes to mind is like, what if the host actually had like recordings ready to go of all the other characters, and it's like, no one's fucking doing this. So spawning Miranda, spawning Ferdinand, which is something the Under has, of course. The Under has these looping pre-recorded performances. And like, I'm just thinking that like, you know, for some way for the host to be able to have these contingency plans for like, things aren't going well, but there's one person who really does want this to be a good experience. I can do this for them. Something like that.
Yeah, I could see. Yeah, you're saying add scripted elements in. I don't know. That almost feels like a different show.
Well,
like,
more as a backup, not as the main idea.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I was gonna say, I don't think you can fake mob mentality.
Right.
No, but I think you can piss people off by saying, you want to do this thing? Oh, no, you don't? All right, well, I have a fucking record of somebody who did want to do it.
Yeah.
You know, if you're not going to participate, then I've got a prop here that has just as much value as you. Is something that would work in an improv show for sure. That's the kind of audience abuse that wins a short form crowd over.
Right.
I do wonder.
Yeah.
Thank you for pointing out. I've got a watch party. Sorry not to bomb your chat and leave, but pleasure chatting with you. Nice to meet you, Dustin.
Yeah, nice to meet you as well. Do you want to keep chatting, Alex?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I have so many questions that I could just ask you, Dustin.
Great.
Bye, Kevin.
Well, nice to meet you, Kevin.
I'll get right to the major one, which is based on what you took from this, Dustin. I'm just curious what this inspires you to do, or what you feel like, oh, this is now possible. Like if you suddenly were given all the funding and everything you needed now to do some kind of virtual reality theater experience in the Quest, what lessons, what kind of stuff would you take from this and then bring to your own thing?
Well, what it was nice to see is like, I guess like, I just feel validated because like I had all these hypotheses and I had done like crappy little experiments adjacent to all these things. And it was nice to see them all together and be like, oh, wow, this actually does work.
Yeah.
So like, I think like initially just relieved that it does work. And so I think what I would do is I would, I think like the things I would do would be like, I mean, if I was still doing projects like this, which I'm not anymore because I have a full-time job, but I'm very happy with. But I probably would do, I did this demo a while back where you could, have you played Mind Show?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So imagine if there was a Mind Show, but other people could wander around the space while you were operating the characters.
Mm-hmm. Was this
so they could? No.
Okay, yeah, sorry.
So this is like a software. This is like the thing I built was similar to Mind Show, but it's like you're a Godzilla-sized character and you're looking over a town, and there's a bunch of like characters in there, and you can point at one and you can teleport into it and you can animate it, and then you can pop out of it, and you also can move it around like it's chess pieces and pop into it again, then pop out and be like Godzilla size. So I built that, and I also built it so that like people could wander around with game controllers as regular characters, and so like you could have one person do a show of Sleep No More, and then jump into different characters and puppet them at different times. So basically, I would probably just keep doing that project.
Yeah.
And so as opposed to there being like kind of one avatar that someone wears for most of the show, which it was like here, you could do something where they could control multiple avatars. I think, yeah, I don't know. Like you're asking a good question. I think like the stuff I'm trying to build now, I'm trying to like build weirder. So for the last like 3 or 4 years, I was trying to make a business of like telepresence VR theater stuff. And so the choices I ended up making were in hindsight, were very artsy, while other people are making a lot more like clever business decisions. Like Adventure Lab is making particularly good business decisions.
Right.
Escape rooms online with a live host is a very good business model. Yeah. Trying to do online immersive theater is a very difficult business model unless you have lots of funding. So I think what I'm trying to do with my own personal stuff right now is like trying to find really weird art to do that is not necessarily palatable.
Right.
Palatable is the wrong word.
To turn a profit. It's something.
Yeah, the goal is not to turn a profit, and the goal is to maybe like impress weirdos, not impress your average person. So that's its own level of weird thing. I think like what it would be nice to make will be like tools for people to build their own shows or host their own spaces. So a lot of people who do like parties now, like birthday parties or large events, it is exhausting to do like a 30-person or 40-person Zoom if you're gonna have a birthday party or something like that. So like having some sort of like asynchronous space with like light interaction that feels like a house party that you could hang out in, that isn't just VR chat, but it's like something else, and maybe you bring in a live performer to like operate some things. That would be kind of fun to do. Are you like trying to figure out what to work on as a project right now? Is that what you're asking?
I mean, always. I mean, this is still a pretty small community. Those of us that are like not just interested in sampling this kind of stuff, but really are gung-ho about, what's the direction of this industry and how many different ways can we push it and what works and what doesn't. I mean, we had a very similar experience to you where we saw a lot of our study validated in this, and we're like, cool, good to see that we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
Because it starts to feel like,
I'm glad I don't feel insane.
Yeah,
exactly. Because
with
it's good to think scientifically. It's good to have hypotheses about arts experiences and then like validate them. Otherwise, you just make boring art because you like don't reflect on your beliefs. So it's nice when you like have a hypothesis and you're like, and then you see it fully realized by someone else, and you're like, oh shit, it works. Yeah. I was sort of right. So that's nice. In terms of in terms of like, I don't know, what were you inspired by, and what would you want to do with it?
Well, I mean, honestly, it's about kind of yes-anding a lot of what's in there, because I think it's a really. Let me start by saying, so this project was smaller than what I was expecting, based on what I'd experienced in the Under and what I immediately thought of when I thought of the Tempest paired with the world and the tone of the Under. I was thinking of something much grander. But that being said, by their own rubric that they've laid out and how Samantha's talked about like what they were trying to do, succeeded with flying colors. It's perfectly, and it's a valuable stepping stone towards larger shows. So like a next step, a simple example would be, not just one actor in there, but two actors who then can play off each other more and have all these other dynamics and play more characters, and also more ready for, audience members not being as engaged as maybe you want them to be. And also starting to be a little bit more diegetic, I think that's the word I want to use, with how every aspect of the world is working. For example, being able to teleport the different locations, cool. It turned me off a little bit that it was instant, that you're suddenly just in a new place, because I thought there's an opportunity there to, considering everything takes place on an island, what if you actually were like zooming to the different parts of the island and you actually have some sense of where all these things are? Or the same way that if you played with like the scrunching teleportation in the Under.
Oh, that was so wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so cool. It's
I
perfect.
can't believe how good it was.
And the more you learn about the world of the under, the more you're like, this is a perfect representation of how to move in this world. Like even something like that, like maybe the world turns inside out when you're moving from one location to another. Like there were little moments like that where I thought there was an opportunity there. But also because the Tempest is all about magic and Prospero with all of his plotting and all this crazy stuff. Like I expected something with maybe a less reliable narrator or more menace, and it was, you know, it's such a happy, welcoming environment, which again is perfect for people who haven't done this before. You know, you don't want to turn people off with anything where
Yeah.
assaulted or
I honestly was a little bit worried about that. I thought it'd be a lot more like boring and passive if you're gonna do, hey, we're doing Shakespeare.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll sit. How did you feel about the length of the show and time?
I thought 40 minutes is a perfect length. I did feel very like, oh, it's over now? What happened?
Yeah.
Kevin was a little bit more like, I thought we were just getting started and this was leading into something bigger. I just kind of felt like I needed something, a button at the end to be like, and now everything we've done feels concluded. Or now you're going to have a reversal and everything you just experienced, you're going to look at in a slightly new way. And so obviously you don't quite get that. I also really wanted some way to engage with the other people that I was in the experience with, not necessarily turning on voice chat or something like that, but such a big part of going to a theater show for me is being able to immediately kind of do what we're doing now with the people I was with.
Did
So,
you what did you do in the lobby at the end?
just waved bye to everyone and left?
Yeah, we ended up like high-fiving, and I think we even grabbed some drinks and like cheers each other and stuff like that. When I was running the online streaming shows, when the performer was done, we just cut the video, and I had multiple people email me and say that felt like they felt lonely and sad at the beginning, especially because the screen would just go black and they'd see the reflection of their face in their laptop. And I was like, oh, right. A big part of theater is the post lobby, like the aftercare experience. That's like 30% of the show, which is interesting. Like the post show experience is a huge part of the show, less so than for movies. Interestingly, I think. I started to feel a little bit around 5 minutes before the end of the show. I sort of was like, I don't know, is this show? I don't know how much longer I want to stay in this show. And then it did end. And part of that, I think, my apartment's just warm, so hot all the time. But it was the perfect length. I do like things that are just shy of overstaying their welcome. And I think still VR is like, especially VR with no breaks. Like I will play Half-Life Alyx for 3 hours, but I'll take my headset off and drink water and stuff like that. Like, I don't know. You probably could have done this if you had an intermission. I don't know how you do a bio break. It would be interesting. Would that just mean that everyone's bodies discombobulate? While they take their headsets off?
Funny. In every VR experience, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Takes off the headset and they crumple like
but if this had an explicit intermission, I wonder if there's a way you could like make that beheading thing part of the animation.
By the way, I'm guessing because we might have had slightly different shows, but did you guys go back to the campfire in the middle of the experience?
Yes.
Why do you think they did that? Because to me, it seems so obvious to have like, you start at the campfire, you go to this other world, you stay there for the whole 30 minutes left, and then you have the last thing at the campfire.
Yeah.
That ending made sense to me. I'm not sure why we went back in the middle.
So if this thing came together in 2 months, it is likely something was randomly cut. You know how these things go.
Sure.
So that could be a reason. It also, I don't know, maybe they thought it was like, maybe the way they designed that was like, it's nice to return home for a bit before we head out again. Especially like after the second time, oh man, I'm trying to remember the sequence of events. The time when you like have that encounter with like the demon overhead.
Yeah.
Is that in the first half or the second half?
The second half.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure things are randomly cut from this show, in the rush to finish things, especially if the Tempest is such a hugely ambitious project. Like, you're right. This does feel an actor telling like his story about the parts of the Tempest he got to do. It's not. So I'm curious why they chose it and stuff like that, other than like it's fantastical. I mean, I've always wanted to do. I mean, Midsummer Night's Dream would be a great show to do, especially because of the like the wandering through the forest, and then a bunch. Obviously, donkey heads are going to happen. Obviously, you're gonna have a few donkey heads. So I think there's like lots to mine here. But the nice thing about Shakespeare is that because it's not in copyright, you can just basically rewrite the show, no one's going to complain.
Right, which is awesome. Yeah, and so were you immediately? It's great knowing that you didn't have any experience with the Under before, so this was so fresh for you. Once you came in, did you immediately kind of feel like you got what this was going to be? Or did you feel like you were learning what the experience was going to be? I'm just kind of curious how those expectations took shape.
I expected that I would be sitting and watching two actors in VR mocap do a show. Like, have you seen the Wave VR?
Yeah.
Yeah, where it's like sort of not interactive. Like you maybe happen to be in the same room. That's what I expected. So the level of interaction was way higher. Like I figured maybe the audience size wouldn't be too big, but I thought it'd be pretty non-interactive, which is why I was like continually surprised at how interactive it was. But as soon as he was looking around the campfire saying, "Hi guys," I think like maybe 10 minutes into the show, the actor I had said something like, "Oh, it's a quiet group," and like I hadn't spoken anything, and mostly, and like for a second I was like, have we all just chosen not to speak, or we do have connected audio? And then I was like, no. I would have heard someone else say cough or something.
Right.
So yeah, it's that. Yeah, like,
it's really funny.
But I was sort of like on edge a little bit that like I hope this isn't open mics, because that's just a terrible design choice, and it just becomes VR chat. VR chat is fun in its own way, to be clear. But I don't think I think it's hard to make a good theater.
Have you gone to any of the improv shows in VR chat?
No.
Where have I heard about them?
I don't particularly feel motivated to. I know how. I just have had so many like negative experiences with audio lag and people trying to do like spontaneous work. I don't know, until like someone finds a solution, I'm just not super interested.
Yeah, I hear that. Yeah, so I'm curious how did you feel about having the host be very clear, like, I'm an actor in LA and we're doing the show, and a lot of very fourth wall breaking.
Yeah.
Versus, there are moments when they are in character and they are reading Shakespeare text, and then they kind of come out and they're like, "Hey guys, wasn't that fun?" By the way, do you know what the name of your host was? Did they ever introduce themselves?
No, they didn't actually. I don't. Voice was male. That's all I know. I haven't seen enough of. I don't recognize the name. The thing that's nice about breaking the fourth wall in shows like this is it makes it easy. Especially because it's a new, like, Gertie the dinosaur, like
no,
it's like sort of the first mixed reality theater. When you're working in a new medium,
we're not, sorry to be clear, we're not talking about the 1914 animated short
we
film?
are talking about that.
Okay.
Where he's doing like a tech demo presentation that becomes dramatic. But like, I think it's like about when you're working in a new medium, you might as well break the fourth wall. And the thing is like, that didn't take away from the impact of the experience when the demon showed up. But everyone feels safer and like less confused. I don't think it just doesn't matter. Like, it's fine. Like, it doesn't take away, there's no suspension of disbelief happening anyway. Like, it doesn't, and I hate that term anyway. It doesn't mean anything. Like, it's when you like, it's really easy to induce mode switches, like whether it's lighting or like costume changes or something like that. And that doesn't really count as spectacle in the bad way we're talking about it. And like, you can transition from fourth wall breaking to not fourth wall breaking when you do a mode switch, and like the audience like is along with you. Like, it's fine. Yeah. How did you feel about that?
I guess I loved the Ariel moments and the, giant scalar, scary spectacle stuff. I loved by the way, with the feast, the day turning into night, and, suddenly everything's scary. And
it's so good.
Did anyone in your experience try to attack Ariel with a sword?
I threw something at him. Like, I think I threw a baguette, like a piece of bread at him, and he batted it away. It's great.
Yeah. It's a great moment to actually really pair the text with the experience, because there's a line, I'm not going to quote it correctly, but basically like, your swords are now too heavy. So there actually was this moment where like 3 of us attack with the sword, and then your sword actually does become too heavy and drops to the ground.
Yes, that did happen to someone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, is that a reference to the play?
Yeah, that's actually like a real line, but said in a more Shakespearean way. And so like I loved moments like that, and I craved more of that. And there were some stretches of time where it was just like, hey, everyone go find an artifact, and we're just gonna have like a talk. And oh, by the way, here's like me just talking for 3 minutes about what happens in the Tempest. And
right.
I got a little tired of that, and was like, give me more of the spectacle. That felt so good to me.
Yeah, in terms of quantity of fourth wall breaking stuff, you're right. There was a little bit too much. It did feel a little bit kids campy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it could have been a little bit less that. It's funny, like most of the people, I'm 5'8", and most of the people I was with were a little bit shorter than me. And so it did remind me a little bit of like Rec Room, where like you were like, are like sorting people into possible, that's probably an adult, that's probably a child. And so I did like wonder that. And so like, yeah, like the tone was kids camp for sure. It might have also just been the actor's voice, like, hey guys, hey, come on around the fire.
Yeah. We ended up having kind of an interesting question in the earlier discussion about what if there was some way to make sure that you're paired with the right host in the right group, almost like how matchmaking works in Fortnite and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, here is your profile for what you enjoy out of this experience. You like a host who's really playful and really does a lot of group hugs and hand holding, or you want someone to be like very invested in the text of Shakespeare, because the structure that Samantha laid out here in the adaptation allows for a lot of room for the host to play with it. And so there would be something kind of interesting about being paired with both an audience and a host that were most suited to your taste, because you could do that.
Yeah. I mean, as you said that, I don't know if this is quite relevant. As you said that, a friend of mine runs party games for corporate corporate entertainment in San Francisco, and now she and all her friends, she laid off all her friends because she has no business now until next year. But she would run party games with 30 to 50 people, and it's really light LARPing, where like you would receive the role of the banker or the police chief or the mobster, and then you could basically do one thing, and like your one thing was like mobsters can exchange weapon tokens for money tokens or something like that, and like the police chief can arrest people and get money for it if they have weapon tokens, like really basic things. But then there ends up being like 20 or 30 different character archetypes, and basically you have an instruction sheet that says you can do one thing, and then it leads to this like really like emergent economy, but doesn't really require people to be like very serious gamers. Anyway, so like they used to do a thing where they would like do personality surveys in advance and try to pair people to a role that felt natural, and they found zero improvement in like experience.
Right.
And certainly not worth the effort of like getting people to pre-sign up and fill out personality surveys and stuff like that. So I hear what you're saying. I do feel like people might not actually do it, and it might be so hard to assess whether it like is helping.
Right, of course, yeah. I guess, yeah, I'm always trying to think about how we can take advantage of the mediums that we're in. And so just by being in a digital platform that has some kind of record of certain things, like even if it doesn't happen immediately, I'd like to imagine there's some kind of future where some of these analytics can start to be useful. I mean, the same way that some people hate the idea of cookies and having targeted ads. Personally, I feel like if I'm going to see advertisements, they may as well be something that
I'd rather be grateful for them. I got an ad like a couple months ago for like a constructed language software package where you can, and I was like, thank you. I've achieved the ultimate targeted ad. I didn't buy it though.
But you were happy it was there.
I was happy it was there. One thing I did like, I think a lot of what you're talking about can be kind of in the moment things, where when he was when the actors assigning roles to us, they would put things on us. But it's possible the actor view, when I was designing some of this stuff back in the day, I call it AR for VR. So like the actor view could include all sorts of extra analytics on us, like how much movement has this person done? How much looking at you versus looking at other things? How roughly engaged is this person right now? To replace the like facial cues you would get in person. I once saw an immersive theater show where like when we entered the show, we all got lays put around us, like Hawaiian lays. And whenever we had a one-on-one experience with an actor, a lay would get taken off. There were like 200 audience members and about 6 actors. So over the course of like a 3-hour show, we were guaranteed to get one-on-one. So like, it's really easy to do that sort of thing. Not necessarily in advance of the show, but like during the show, you can assess how engaged someone is and how much they've received, and definitely not in a mind ready way. Like still like just pretty basic stuff. Yeah.
What about though for people who don't want to be as participatory? I know people who go to Sleep No More. They hope that they don't get a one-on-one. I that's the kind of the broader.
Yeah.
I wonder how to gauge for.
Well, like fortunately, like actors are really good at in person, are really good at assessing that,
right.
And there's lots of like cues, and I'm sure. In addition, people who work at Sleep No More get an additional whole set of guidelines of what works and hasn't. I mean, when I've been doing stuff like this in VR in the past, it was definitely way harder to tell. Where like an actor would approach a character thinking they were ready to interact, but they definitely weren't because there's no facial cues. So yeah, I don't know what people do here. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. But again, yeah, I want to make sure we're very clear that this is a remarkable achievement. I still can't get over just how stable the whole thing is. To compare this to, I mean, yeah, most of the work we've done has been in high fidelity, which is no longer even really a VR platform, save for the fork from the GitHub, which is now called Tivoli. But so many
weird. What happened?
With high fidelity?
They just, I don't know. I just see, I don't know. High fidelity is definitely a startup, but I've seen multiple VR startups kind of refuse to pivot and then just do nothing. I don't know. And I'm sure they were doing stuff in the background, but they kind of just didn't. I don't know what's happening. Like there was a VR startup I worked for in 2016 and then like left because I was trying to do my own thing, but like I really liked what they did. And I checked on them like 2 years later and like nothing had changed. And same with Mindshow. Yeah. Like they've like published new character packs and scenes, but like nothing else. And I'm like, why? What do you think is going to happen? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong to think that way. I don't.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. So right now I'm working on a few virtual events, and one of them is in VR chat. This is for the VR Awards, which is normally like a black tie London event, and now it's going to be virtual for the first time.
Yeah.
And the act there of like figuring out like how many people can be in an instant. What are they going to see? What's going to be live? What's going to be pre-recorded? What's going to be video? What's going to be a 3D model? What's going to be an avatar? And then also saying like, okay, and then we need to make sure that like portals get dropped so people can move to the next room in the next event. And there's so many opportunities for something to glitch or crash or something to go wrong. And
yeah.
I just love that this is a purpose-built live event platform that I'm sure they're going to continue to refine and improve and build on. And so much of it just works, which is the scariest thing about any kind of live VR thing right now, is that things won't work. So that's so cool in itself.
I'm trying to find this like towards support theater. There's like okay, well here's the whole fucking PDF. Like
great.
You don't need to read this thing, but like this has something in there. Or like you might be able to find like a short version of it. But like that not okay. It should be sent to you now. Okay, I'll just write the phrase towards poor theater.
Okay.
Grotowski, and you can figure it out. But like you can find summaries of it. Yeah, I mean the principles I figured out are like the audience shouldn't have control. The actor needs to have 100% of the control. Because like if something goes wrong, you can't have a moment where the actor is trying to figure out what's happened and also trying to fix it. There just needs to be one button. Like it shouldn't be any more complicated than HyperCard. And you can't have a stage manager and an actor trying to collaborate on fixing it. Yeah.
Oh, by the way, you want to know a cool technical issue I had that was almost solved in an interesting way? I didn't update my app before the show, and this was like Quest wasn't even.
Oh yeah, I was scared about that. I like turned on my Quest and like went into the app like 2 hours before, because like also I'm on like Oculus beta software,
Right.
So I was worried there'd be some stupid clusterfuck.
Yeah, everything worked smoothly for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I went into the lobby and I was like, that's weird, I'm here all alone. I thought there'd be more people, or like maybe I don't see the people till later. I'm in the lobby for like 25 minutes. There's a puzzle in the lobby, by the way, so I did make some progress trying to solve the puzzle. And then eventually an usher materialized in front of me in the center of the room. And it was clearly someone putting on a VR headset, standing up, spider uncrumpling, and trying to talk to me. And I couldn't hear them. They weren't making any sound, but I was like, feel like they're trying to tell me something. So I DM'd the Tender Claws Twitter account and was like, hey, I've been in the lobby alone for 30 minutes. Just wondering if everything's okay. This was the very first opening night show, 7 p.m. on Thursday. And so I just thought, like, you know, they're still prepping the set designs or something. But then, yeah, the DM said, like, oh, yeah, no, hey, I did that. I tried to get in there to tell you that you need to update the app. And so it's like, even though it didn't quite work, the fact that there's like an usher character that in theory could materialize in front of you and then tell you what you need to do to fix your problem, that's very cool.
Yeah, that's interesting. I guess that only like comes out in emergencies. Wait, does that mean you missed the first huge chunk of the show, or did you get bumped to a later show?
Right. So, and here's the other cool thing is like, I'm like, oh, so my show already started. They're like, yeah. And they said, well, check your account. We already just gave you a free show ticket. Use it for any other showtime. And I'm like, that's cool that it was just that seamless. And then I was actually able to even grab the 8 p.m. show. So I had like, 15 minutes of time to kill. And then I was back in it. And then everything went smoothly that time. Except actually my host, no one could hear her. So she had some missing audio. And so she left and came back a few times, and then everything was fine and everything.
Oh wow, okay.
Swimmingly. But yeah,
Opening nights, man.
The fact that there's no real snowball effect to technical issues. It's kind of like you're having an issue, you can kind of keep hammering at that one thing, and then it's solved and everything continues. Whereas I've seen things break down like a house of cards before in virtual events.
Yeah, I mean that's one reason. That's one reason why like my instinct is not complicate. Like, don't add a second actor. It's much easier to have an actor and then like they can wear 2 different clothes. Because like when there's a second actor, they might be in the same. There's just another set of things that can go wrong. It's such a dumb sounding instinct to have, because it's like the opposite for an in-person show. Just have another actor there. But like VR, it's like no, it's separate. Both of them need to have good internet connections. They both need to be able to hear each other outside of the show. Like if just one actor's running the show, they don't need to talk to anyone else. Like, whereas if you have a second actor, they need to be able to like unmic themselves and go to backstage mode and all this stuff. Like, and they need to be able to have an observer mode. Like, it's just, yeah.
One idea I heard someone bring up that I've been mulling over has been, for someone who just really does not want to participate in something like this at all, how would you feel about the ability to make your avatar invisible? So you are still seeing everything that happens, but you are literally not a participant at all. You're just a ghost who can kind of move through the whole thing and watch everyone else doing it.
I would never build that into one of my shows. Because if someone is uncomfortable with that, I would rather be good at recognizing that in the moment and building the show for them and making it so that the actor can figure that out. That they want to coast as a passenger. I'd rather support that and figure out how to design it so that they feel comfortable. Yeah, I think that's how I feel about that.
And in theory, VR could be a place where even people who would never want to participate in an in-person immersive experience, the added anonymity that comes from this, that it doesn't look like you all, all the avatars look the same, no one knows your name.
You don't need to talk.
Yeah, there's an opportunity, I think, for even typically reticent or reserved people to maybe come out of their shell a little bit here in a very safe way.
Yeah, and like I'm prepared for the feeling I have there to be like not necessarily like an unkind one to people who are shy. I'm prepared for that. But like I'd rather figure out how to make that person feel comfortable, than figure out a way to build a passive observer mode in. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I recognize that probably a way to make them feel comfortable and buy a ticket is to like say that there's a passive observer mode that you can pop out of, but then like I'm aware that would be a weird experience for other people to have a person show up 10 minutes into the show and be like, did they miss the first bit? And like not being sure how to relate to them. And I think that would also be worse because like, I don't know, I care about groups that go through a thing together, even if they're strangers.
Yeah. You want to keep the team together. That totally makes sense. Can you imagine a scenario where you could have a much larger audience and this could still work, or do you think that kind of 8-person group is sort of the sweet spot?
I would want to organize them into breakouts. You had 7, right?
Yeah, that felt good.
If that was happening, I would want to organize them into breakouts. Because like you can have like busking or tour guide experiences with like 20 to 50 people, but they aren't really like playful.
Right.
And when I say breakouts, I do mean you could potentially have one actor, but like you've chunked people into groups of like 5 to 8, and they're all in their own boats or something like that. So you like, I don't know. I feel like it's hard to relate to a group that would be so large, I think. Anyway, I actually should go to sleep.
Yeah.
This is a great chat.
Early to bed, early to rise?
I am often because I am very sensitive to heat and I try to go outside before it gets too hot.
That's a great
I also slept very poorly last night.
Well, thank you for having a late night discussion. Before I forget though, so you haven't done any of the under yet, right? Just Tempest?
No, I'll probably do it at some point.
Right. So the introductory sequence of the under, I really want to hear your response to it because it's very relevant to your thesis of improv remixing and that sort of thing. I started doing bits of the under right after the show ended. Yeah.
And then I got to the room with all the doors, but I didn't get any farther.
Okay, yeah. So you passed the part where lifting the door. Did you realize what was going on there?
Well, that we had to do it together.
What do you mean that you had to do it together?
Well, I had to do it. I did it with this character person, and then I don't know. There was some weird glitch, and then I had to do it with another character in there. Oh wait, was that me?
You did it with yourself. That was you. How
the fuck did I not know that?
I know. That was your thesis.
That's very uncomfortable to me.
Yeah.
Why did I not realize that was myself? I don't like that. That's very weird.
You would have preferred that it was just a random other person who popped in there?
Well, no, I thought it was. I thought I was like randomly in multiplayer mode.
Yeah.
How the fuck did I not know that? I am like confused.
I love that. And then this will be another discussion at another time, but I'm curious, have you read The Invention of Morale?
No, I have not.
This will be another discussion. Read that book sometime. It's also very super relevant to a lot of things you've been talking about. My understanding is it's also a bit of an influence on the Under Presents, but if you ask me sometime like what my ideal VR theater show would be, it would be taking a ton of stuff from that story. So discussion for another time, but we'll leave that on the table.
I think my reality is broken now. I can't be like, how did I not realize? Okay, well, I'll blame it on tiredness. Anyway, great chatting with you. We'll do this again.
Oh, and sorry, and the door thing too, also loops of you with all the doors. Sorry, I know I'm breaking your brain. You're gonna have terrible dreams tonight.
Well, it's less that. It's more like if this is true, how unaware am I? Like I don't. Anyway, have a nice night.
Thanks.
Bye.
Cheers. Good night.